Welcome to Chasing Hard podcast, where we talk about trusting God when life doesn't turn out the way you planned. If you've been alive for any amount of time, you've probably encountered something big or small, even that didn't turn out quite the way you planned. And sometimes, for a lot of us, or even most of us, there can be big things that totally hijack the things that we thought our life would look like. Like we thought going forward. We had it all planned out, and then something happened, and it didn't go the way we wanted it to go. And how we trust God in those situations? How do we like? Do we turn from Him? Do we run to Him? So that's what we talk about here, and I am
Woo-hoo.
excited to have Noelle, my friend Noelle from online. Like we've never met in person,
Yeah.
but we spent some time together online. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah. So we could just dive right in.
All right.
I know some things about you, but I'm going to let you tell us about a time or times in your life where the things you had planned just didn't pan out. Yeah.
So when we talked about this topic, what immediately came to mind for me, which interestingly enough is a part of my calling, right? You've known me kind of from the beginnings of my time
Mm.
online and kind of my journey of entrepreneurship, but what I'm finding now, and I like to say this is something I would get off my deathbed to do for somebody. It's
Oh.
a drive in me I can't even describe or explain, is helping purpose-based entrepreneurs
Mm.
clear out the money blocks, the wrong beliefs, the fears, the shame around money, so that they can go ahead and take the leap and step into their calling,
Right.
and make a profit out of it. My
I like that.
second book was called Your Purpose to Profit.
Wait,
Um,
I knew about what's your first book called?
Change your story.
I didn't know you had a second book.
Well, it's digital, so
Okay. Okay.
yeah, so that's why. And interestingly enough, it's I'm almost more excited about the second one just because the second one has assessments that you can take.
Oh.
It helps you map where you are, and then it has
Mm,
exercises for each. So it's a real how-to. So you can,
that's good.
yeah, yeah. So, but that's become really my
Right.
focus, is helping clients with those emotional, spiritual issues, and then
Mhm.
like coaching them through. Anyway, so ironic that that's my calling, because it was so hard for me
Mm.
to figure out my entrepreneurial journey.
Right.
And
So, if I remember correctly, you had a journey yourself through the financial.
mhm,
I mean,
mhm,
I feel like a lot of us don't have a healthy relationship with money, and maybe even more so if you're a Christian, because
yeah,
we think it's either bad or
mhm,
good, and
yeah,
it isn't. Money is
yeah,
money. The
yeah.
love of money is the root of all evil, but not money.
Yes. Yeah. It's like saying that my chair is evil. Like my chair is not evil, maybe unless I use it to bash someone over the head with it. But it's,
That's
it's a
true.
tool,
Right.
just like money is. Yeah. And so that is actually where my journey began, because I guess it's been 25 years ago now, somewhere around there,
Mhm.
that I asked God to teach me 100% financial surrender. And
Oh,
so, yeah.
oh.
Yeah. Um, so that's actually part of what the first book was about,
Okay,
was
I
that
remember that
journey.
book. I
Yeah.
did read that book, or I listened to it. If
Okay.
was it
Okay.
audio? Was it because I'm an audio book person, so if it's not, I must have read it.
Yeah, I have not done it audio. I
Okay.
don't know if there's some softwares that you can kind of
Okay.
load them and they become
Yeah.
audio, but I haven't recorded it yet.
Okay. Well, I did read it, and it was very insightful.
Good. Good. I'm
Yeah.
glad you felt that way. Yeah.
S-
So anyway, all that to say that I started doing the live workshops and got a really good response, and felt in a really powerful way God call me into what I was moving towards.
mm.
And so I really thought, well, God called me to it. This is going to be great.
Easy peasy, right?
Yeah,
Because God
like
called you.
I'll be
Yeah.
a millionaire next year.
There you
Yeah.
go.
And yeah, it didn't turn out that way.
Didn't happen. Okay. Shocker there, right?
Yeah. And it was super hard. It
Yeah.
was, I actually say, and I've been through some stuff. I'm a sexual abuse survivor. I've been through divorce from a marriage where there were some addiction pieces in it. Like I've been through hard,
Mhm.
and this has been up there.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I've been through hard as well. In a, not divorce, but the other things that you mentioned.
Mhm.
Um, probably one of the most difficult things that I have encountered was a financial thing.
Mhm.
We had rental properties back in 2008 when the housing bubble crashed.
Oh, right, right.
And so because we didn't really know what we were doing and some advice from people who offered to help and then pulled out at the last minute, we lost our rental properties, but we also lost our primary house because the people that said they were going to help didn't.
Mhm.
And we didn't really know any better. And so at the time my youngest was 14, my other two were older, but still living with us. And we lost our house. So moving my family from what they had known most of their lives, asking them to go through all of our stuff and decide what they don't want, give
Mhm.
some away, throw some away, take some, or we're going to put some in storage. Like even now when I talk about it, I still have some emotion attached to that because that
Yeah.
was super hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Gut wrenching. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, for sure.
And that was, you know, this if you read the book, but that was one of the first things that happened
Yeah.
when I prayed that prayer of financial surrender. Like I tell people, sometimes I hesitate to tell people what happened because people are like, I'm not gonna
I'm
ever
not
pray
doing that.
that.
Yeah.
But I look back now, I don't have any idolatry around money.
That's cool.
Like it doesn't have a hold on me.
Right.
And that also means I can make it without guilt as well.
That's really cool
Yeah. Yeah.
because why? I mean, yeah, I think growing up in a Baptist church, it was, yeah, money was evil and you were pious if you didn't have any. And people would
Mm,
get up in the church and talk about not having that and how that having any money or anything, material thing, and how that was glorifying God. Going from that to a charismatic church where you did the name it, claim it stuff, like my teenage head was like spinning.
yeah.
And I don't think it's taken a lot of work, but I don't have the healthiest relationship with money. I,
Mhm.
yeah, I think it gets more space in my head than I want it to. It
Mm,
has more.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what has been, well, maybe I need to ask that question off camera because it's been a while since we talked. Like
It has
where has your journey been right now
with money.
with money and with your calling?
Wow, this just got turned around on me, didn't it?
I
Look
was
at
like, we
this.
can do this after we hit record,
Yeah,
if
let's
you want to.
let's revisit that one in just a little bit because I just remembered something about you that I had forgotten. You have a degree in counseling, right?
Mhm.
You are a therapist. Do you still?
I still have a few one-on-one
Okay.
clients, but most of what I do now, and even my one-on-one clients are, I was thinking about this the other day, the difference between therapy and coaching.
Mm,
I spent a lot of my time as a therapist helping people recover from their trauma.
okay.
And that is still some of the work I do as a coach, but the
Hmm.
focus in coaching is what are you called to and what do we need to get past in order for you to step into that? It's more forward motion.
Yes. Which I
Yeah.
think that's the thing about counseling. And I've been to many counselors and I
Mm.
love counseling. I'm not anti-counseling at all. EMDR therapy was like a
Mhm.
game changer for me in a lot of ways. But it sometimes seems like I don't know, I'm not going to say we get stuck in our past because we don't move past the past.
Mhm. Mhm.
Who went like, I don't know. I did that, but it seemed like every time I went to a different and new therapist, I had to start all over again. And I didn't
Mhm.
want to start all over again because I had already done some work there. So um, I like that coaching is forward looking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you do a lot of your coaching or even your one-on-one? Is it around money a lot or no, not so
It
much?
is. It
Okay.
is. And I still have a few clients from the past who will reach out to me and because they don't want to start over with someone. And
Yes.
so if I because they know me as I was as a therapist. So I always have to tell them like, look, this is what I'm doing now. This is how I
Right.
work with people. If that sounds good, yes, we can start up again. And if not, I can, make referrals and all that good stuff.
Hmm. Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
So you want to revisit. What was the question? What was your question to me?
Oh,
Let's talk about that.
where's your journey taken you? Like in terms of the last time we talked and
Wow. I mean, I'm still obviously I'm doing a podcast now, which
Mhm.
I wasn't doing back then. I finished my book. It's not yet published. It will be published this year. It's been edited, but
Good.
I keep reading it because I want it to say what, and I know you can always go back and change things, but I wanted to say what it's supposed to say. And it's not about, it's about respecting, it's about telling my story, my journey, but respecting all the players, like
Mhm.
the privacy of my family.
Mhm.
So I wanted to tell it in a way that would make anyone feel really horrible about what I'm
Mhm.
saying.
Mhm.
And that took a lot of writing because at first it was just you know, slit your wrist open and bleed. And
Mm.
so I had to clean it up a lot, but
Yeah.
it will be released this year.
Good.
So
Congratulations.
yeah, so there's that. And then I'm actually, I'm on staff at my church in a different position, which allows me to walk with people, in grief type situations, which
Mm.
seems to be my main focus it seems like life is full of everything is a grief situation. Like
Right.
you
Right.
can't, I knew a psych nurse once who her saying was those who grieve well live well.
Mm.
And we as
Yeah.
Christians don't always like to grieve, to sit in that.
Mhm.
We want to move past it without
Mhm.
actually working through it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
Just still figuring it out though, because
Yeah.
because that's life.
Well, and I think too, like just with the topic of this podcast, with things being hard comes grief, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
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 And I remember a counselor once telling me, one of my many, that even good things are an opportunity to grieve. Like even when you have a baby, you're adding someone to your family, whether it's the first one or the third one, like
Hmm.
you have to grieve that
Hmm.
unit that you were while you're rejoicing over the addition.
Yep.
It's really, it
Yep.
seems like life is full of that.
Yeah. Yep. And it's
One,
funny.
they
Oh, go
don't, I
ahead.
mean, they can coexist. Like it's not an opposite, grief and joy.
Yep. 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 I remember the day we came home from the hospital with my son, who was our first and only so
Mhm.
far, unless we adopt, we got a late
Oh,
start. And
so cool.
and I remember, and I do know some of it was hormones because I mean, wailing in the
Wow.
shower because I realized it was never going to be just me and my husband again.
Wow.
Like, and my husband's my best friend. And but
Oh,
it was funny that I'm glad it happened in the shower. Like nobody could hear me
right.
wailing, you know?
Right. Yes.
And I
Yes.
just let it out. And it like great after that. Sometimes you
Yeah.
just need a good cry.
Yeah. I do talk about in my book, it was actually more than just once in the shower, but the time that I spent on my bathroom floor with my head buried in a towel so no one could hear.
Mhm.
And wailing kind of sums it up. The
Mhm.
wailing and the anguish from the very depths of my soul
Mhm.
about everything that I'd gone through. Some of it was definitely the foreclosure on our
Yeah.
house. Yeah.
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 Wow.
We had to let go of our house too on this journey, like early on. That was the
Mm,
thing, like, oh, because what happened was my husband was in a successful corporate job. I had a private practice, and I was pregnant. So we were sitting around the table when I was about 5 months pregnant, and we both prayed, God, put us fully into our callings.
Mm.
And
You pray these dangerous prayers.
I have a friend who teases me around that. She was like, you better watch it with those prayers.
Yeah.
But the next day, my husband was told the position, and he had just been promoted, was being like,
Terminated.
yes, yeah. And so
Wow.
they kept him on throughout the rest of the pregnancy, and he was looking for other jobs.
Mm.
But he was let go the week before my son was born, our son was born, and he couldn't find a job to
Wow.
save his life. And that's kind of what started our journey.
Mm.
And the timing was like, that could not have been a coincidence. We knew that
Right.
was God. But we kept thinking like, we had just made a pretty significant investment, and we thought, oh, that's going to come in and that's going to
Mm.
save
Mm.
us.
Mm.
And things kept like, we went through the savings first, then the 401k, and then
Wow.
and still hadn't figured it out. And um, that was hard
Oh, yeah.
because I think sometimes the hardest times are when we've questioned, like, God, did you abandon me? Like,
Yes.
you told
Yes.
me about this calling, and you told me
Right.
about all these wonderful things, and nothing but bad has happened,
Right.
since.
Yes. And so that's another thing. What if you're someone, and I've talked to many women who have trusted God and believed God for whatever, for their marriage, for a
Mhm,
child, a prodigal child, for whatever, and it's still like
mhm,
does not turn out the way that they thought it
mhm,
would,
mhm,
and probably because of how long it's been and how old they are, it probably won't change. Like they will probably leave this world and not see
mhm.
the answer that they thought that they were believing God for.
Yeah.
And so I've struggled with that. And there's a scripture in Deuteronomy that talks about the secret things belonging to God, which comforts me because I think that means that there are things that I don't understand and I won't
Mhm,
understand on this earth. And I get to choose whether I'm going to follow God, trust God, even
mhm.
if I never see the thing I'm believing for.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a
yeah. And I
hard.
think, is it Hebrews 12 or 11 that talks about people who didn't see the promises yet? And that is very tough. And the thing, in terms of, because there are still some promises that I'm waiting for.
Right.
Um, and what I have come up with is, without exception, without fail, without exception, everything that I have turned over to God in my life, He has given back to me better.
Mm,
And sometimes it wasn't anything like I planned
right.
or wished for,
Right.
but I really like this result. And so I hold on to those pieces in the wait for
And
the
that's
other
good.
ones. Yeah.
I do like that because I guess the way that I've made peace with a lot of things in my life is living with the end in mind, knowing that this life is temporary and I may not see the things manifested that I expected or believed God for, and being okay with that because this is not my forever home. Like
Mhm.
this is very temporary and it's going really quickly. Um,
Right, right. That's the
gee,
truth.
I know. So, and not in a morose way. Like I'm not like, oh, just waiting for
Mhm.
this. I have joy and I do the things that I do and engage in the things I engage in and feel like what God has called me to do with joy that as an act of worship,
Mhm.
knowing still that I am in the midst of some things I didn't ask for and was unprepared and unskilled to handle.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Hard stuff. That's what we talk about here. So, welcome to
It's
the podcast.
the hard stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, but God has never abandoned us. Never
Mhm.
left us alone.
Mhm.
Whether we feel abandoned or not, he is there with us. And reframing, it sounds like you do a lot of that. You reframe what you're going through. And
Mhm.
I don't know, I just like what you just said in Hebrews and how,
Yeah.
yeah, you just reframe the way you look at things, I think.
Yeah, and I think too, like, I am, people tell me I'm gentle, but I am a fighter at heart.
I can see
And
both.
okay. And I actually, my reaction when some of these things happen or when hard happens, is I like God and I duke it out.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes. I
like,
love that.
yeah, like, and that's, when I talk about this in the book a little bit as well. When my husband is face to face with me, he knows my heart, like he's my best friend. But there are times where my husband and I are talking and I misunderstand and it leads to frustration. My answer to that is not to leave my husband.
Mm,
My answer is to be like, look, you said this and we like, what's going on? We talk more.
right.
And so that's kind of the tactic I've taken with God too. When I think if somebody super religious was to read my journals, they might be quite horrified. But I come boldly before the throne of
Yeah.
grace.
Same. Yeah. I think that's a lot of us don't think it's okay to be angry and to be angry at God. He
Mhm.
gave us our emotions. He's
Mhm.
not afraid of what we say or think. And he already knows if we're thinking it. So yeah, I let him know. And he's heard some F-bombs from me, like in prayer.
Mhm.
Like I'm talking to God, and that's prayer.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I don't hold back. And he still loves me. He still
Mhm.
died for me. I'm still his child.
Yeah.
And there's freedom in that.
Yep. And I wasn't raised like that. I was raised in faith and I was always good. And I
Yeah.
remember in my early 20s when my life was falling apart and I was driving down the highway, cursing and swearing and spitting and sobbing my rage about like I did everything everyone told me to do to be a good girl and have the
Yes.
blessings of God. And I was livid. And I remember it was actually one of the first times I really felt like God spoke to me because I
Mm.
saw an image of his face and he was smiling and he said, I've been waiting for you to get honest with me.
Ah,
Yeah.
wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It was a
Because
huge turnaround.
yeah, I like that because I think he is
Mm,
waiting for all of us to get honest with him. I don't know. He's not surprised by situations that we find ourselves in. He's not trying to figure out what he's going to do differently
mhm.
because oh gosh, that happened.
Oh, she's right. I really blew
Yeah.
it there.
Yeah. So, and that in itself brings comfort to me, knowing
Yeah.
that even though I don't understand, he already knew before I took my first breath the choices I would make in the journey that I would go through.
Mhm.
So that
Yeah.
that's comforting to me in those
Yeah.
hard times. Yeah. So anything else you want to tell us about any other hard journey that you've had or
Um,
before we wrap this up, and then I am going to give you a chance to speak to a woman who may be going through a hard time or anybody who's listening and what you would say to them.
oh, okay. Well, this would probably be it.
Mm,
Like, it won't stay this way. Trust God for better and keep taking one step forward.
mm,
I think that I have, worked with probably thousands of clients over the course, and the ones who don't get better are the ones who don't like. I remember one client who came to me really struggling with depression, and she was suicidal.
mm,
And so a few years later, she would always say, you saved my life. And I was glad for that.
mm.
But she never believed that she could not be depressed. And so she was just managing the depression instead
Wow.
of, um, and I find that life sometimes knocks us down. The hard knocks us down so hard sometimes that we can't believe, like, hoping is painful
Mhm.
sometimes.
True.
And so, but one of the things, and this was something I hung on to in all my seasons of hard, is that you said you came so I could have life overflowing, life to the full.
Yes.
So if I'm not having that right now, we're not at the end of the story.
Yes.
Yeah.
If I, what is that? There's a line in a song that we sing. If I'm not dead, then God's not done. Something like that.
Oh, yeah.
something, but
Right.
it's true. And it may not still be the happy ending that we're looking for, but better. You said better, and I like that.
Mhm.
And better may look differently than what we expected, but
Yeah.
better is still better.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
go ahead.
Even in the little things, like we had to let go of our home on the beginning of our entrepreneurial journey, because my husband and I both started businesses and neither of us had any business experience, which I
Oh,
don't
wow.
recommend doing that.
Ah,
So we ended up losing our home during that time. And it's funny because I guess it's been about 3 years ago now that we ended up in another home, which is where I am right now, up in my little office loft
aw.
upstairs. And I couldn't tell you how much I love this house.
Wow. Wow.
Um, 10,000 times better than the house that we gave up, you know?
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah,
And
in the little and the
yeah.
big thing.
Well, what you're saying, that reminds me as well. I mean, even though I would never ever want to go through what we went through, um, that house was for a season. I think it was for the raising of my children. And I don't know if I would have had the courage to leave there because it was comfortable and it was what I
Mm.
knew, and where I'm at is better.
Mhm.
It's not the journey I would have chosen for me or for
Mhm.
my kids,
Mhm.
but it is better, and I'm grateful to be where I'm at now, to live where I'm at now. And yeah, I like the betterness. That's not a word,
Yeah.
but yeah.
We'll make it a word.
Yeah, it's a word right now. Yeah. Yeah. So any final words that you want to say along
Um,
those lines?
keep hold God to his promise in your life for abundance. Like
Mm,
hard doesn't last forever, and don't stay there.
that's good.
Yeah.
If someone's looking for you or your books, where can they go?
If you want the Your Purpose to Profit book, that is at yourpurposetogrofit.com.
Okay.
And you can download it there, and there's some bonuses and fun things with that. And then if you want Change Your Story, you can just Google my name on Amazon, Noelle Schwantes.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
how exciting that is. Is there another book inside just waiting
There
to be
is
written?
there is one in process, yeah, but
Okay.
this one is going very slow, so I don't know
Okay.
when that one will. Yeah.
Well, so cool. That's
Yeah.
so neat to know that you have a book, more books inside you. So,
Yeah. Yeah. If
well,
all I did was write, I'd be quite content with that.
oh, really? Because you love
Yeah.
to write?
Mhm.
Ah, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time to join us and
Thank you.
sharing your story and your bits of wisdom. Um, yeah, it's been an insightful conversation with you.
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad. Thank you for having me, Lori.
Absolutely. And thank you for joining us. I'll be back next week, and I hope you are too.